You know what? Why don't I point out something that I've done that's pretty stupid, and you know I really should have known better. Hey there, welcome back. I'm Nick, and I'm here in my front garden to tell you about the mistake that I've made. I made one thinking, you know what? This is probably something I'm pretty safe with, but to be honest, I still managed to make a mistake even after preparing for it. So why don't I tell you guys about it, and you can hopefully not repeat my idiocy. So if you see over here, I've got what looks like a rather healthy looking mint. And this is a Mojito mint. Now, if you look a little more carefully, you're going to notice there's a couple of sprigs of something else that are popping in here that are not quite the same. You know, I can barely tell where they are, but they are in there. So this guy here, not the same. And I think this guy over here, also not the same. This here is Mojito mint. It smells delicious. Makes me want to have a mojito right now. Now this here over here, this is actually a chocolate mint, which is, I think it's a hybrid of peppermint. And you can see there's a couple of them poking around here. And what I did stupidly was put these two guys in the same pot. I need to remedy this because I really thought that, you know what, two different mints in the same pot would be better than trying to mix mint with anything else. Because you know, mint is pretty invasive and people tell you all the time, don't put mint with anything else. So time to learn our lesson and fix it. So I've got this huge colossal Mojito mint now, which is taking over the pot, and you know what, it's not leaving any breathing room for its little cousin here, the chocolate mint. So what I'm gonna try and do is pull these guys out like I would pull a weed almost, but more gentle than that, and transplant them here into their own pot. And that way I will not make this mistake again. When they say you should keep mint in one pot, they didn't mean mix it with other mint. They meant just keep it by itself, whatever kind of mint it is. So first things first, let's take apart this plant. What I've got here is a weeding tool. Let's see if I can pull this out. So here we go. I'm gonna make an attempt here and see if we can get this thing out in one piece. Thankfully, I had planted them pretty decently far apart. These two sprigs kind of lived on their own. Looks like some bugs have been getting into the bottom leaves as well. I got a couple holes in here, but I should be able to extract these without too much trouble. Pull out my handy weeding tool here. I'm gonna try and dig around without damaging either of the root systems. Pull in here and just kind of lift up. And I'll put back the dirt that I'm taking out afterwards, after I try and shake these off a little bit. Now, I had actually pruned this Mojito mint over here, this guy here, probably about 3 weeks ago, and it was down to, I don't know, maybe this high. I can kind of see where it was. We can take a look where I cut it, and it's grown so crazy since then that you can barely tell that it's been cut. In fact, here we go. This is how far down I cut it. It was probably 2.5 to 3 inches high, and it's grown all of this in the last 3 weeks on top since we've had some rain, and then we had a bit of sun. Here we go. I think I've got my first chocolate mint out, and it's grown pretty nicely as well. You know what? This pot may actually be too small. I'm gonna see if I can get the second guy out here. I'm gonna poke underneath here. I'm gonna go down about maybe 3 inches down and lift without damaging the plant itself and without damaging its next door neighbor here. Try and kind of jiggle it out and not damage the root system. And there we go. Wow, it's actually done pretty well for itself. Pretty good root set there. So you know what? This one's actually doing really well. Looks like it's got a whole other sprout coming out of it. So I'm going to pop this here, and I'm going to go grab myself a bigger pot. So I've grabbed myself a slightly larger pot here so I can transplant my chocolate mint, which is looking pretty good. Much bigger root system than when I plopped it in here. These were actually grown as cuttings from another chocolate mint, and they were probably about 2 inches high when I popped them in, and they had just started to root. So these have been in the ground for about 3 weeks, and as you can see, the roots have gotten particularly long here. So I've just got a mixture of regular old potting soil, container mix specifically, and a little bit of peat moss or sphagnum mixed in there for breathability. So now that I've got my larger pot here, what I'm going to try and do here is make a couple of spots, one for each of these plants, one on either side. And I want them not too shallow, but not too deep. So I'm going to top this off with a little extra dirt because they really don't have a huge root ball. At least one of them does. One of them doesn't. Pop this guy in here. Give this a bit of a stir. Also gets rid of any kind of clumps and big blobs of dirt that might impact growth and get in the way of these pretty frail roots. I'm gonna pop the first one in. It looks pretty good there. You know what? He could probably be a little higher up too. So I'm gonna give him all the dirt that I've got in this pot. Mix that up. I've got a little bit of compost on top as well. The compost should help with the organic matter. All right, so let's pop this guy in, pat him down a bit. We want to leave him about 1 inch of room around the lip of this pot so that, you know, it's going to settle down a little bit, but that should give enough room for water. It looks pretty good. And you can probably move him a little bit more towards the center. There. Now his brother here was a little bit, I guess sister, doesn't really matter. Sibling, let's go with that. A little bit larger root ball attached and it has some growth. You can sort of see here off the bottom. It looks like a whole new stem coming off here. I'm gonna pop this guy in and give him a little bit more room and put them off to the side. There we go. Now I've got a little bit more compost here that I can put on top. I'll pat this down so it stands a bit better, because right now it doesn't have a lot of strength to it. They're getting squished quite a bit by this Mojito mint. They're kind of leaning a little bit. There we go. That's better. So I'll top this off with a bit of compost around the top here. Nice and moist. Lots of organic matter in here. There we go. That looks pretty good. Satisfied. All right, let's make sure there's no leaves covered. Even though these bottom leaves are a little bit dirty, you know, that's where they gather energy. So make sure that all the leaves, you know, no dirt on them, not covered by the soil you just transplanted in here. And if they're dragging too low, you can always clip them off too, right? There we go. I think that's pretty satisfactory. If I bring that guy over to the camera here, you can take a look at what I've got. So nice growth. I'm gonna pull this new blade. Maybe it's a new stem, but it's got a lot of growth on it. You can see that there. And this guy looks pretty happy, so we're gonna leave him alone now. I've got a bit of a gap in this pot. I'm sure that the Mojito mint is gonna fill it in, but you know what's funny is that I had actually taken some cuttings. So these cuttings here, you can see the root system at the bottom. I took these cuttings at the same time as pruning this guy down. So I actually trimmed them down to about 3.5, 4 inches each. And you can see they've all rooted really well, really nicely in the 2 or 3 weeks that I've had them sitting in the water. And I'm just gonna put these back in and backfill the gap in the pot. That way it looks nice. And you know what, they're all the same plant this time, so we won't have any more of this sharing pot problems. You know, while I'm here, I figure I'm gonna repot these guys into the available space here. And then you know what? I've got these spearmint cuttings that I took probably about 2.5 weeks ago. And one of them seems to have grown a pretty decent patch of roots. The roots on here are looking pretty good. Now the other one, no roots at all. So you know what? I think what I'm probably do is cut this guy back. My trusty snippers here. And I'm gonna trim this guy down a little bit. Nice 45-degree angle, keep it nice and sharp, and see if this guy picks up some roots in the meantime, because he's still looking relatively healthy. But I will pot up his sibling, and maybe I'll use the same pot that I was planning on using earlier for this guy. So I've gone ahead and I've got the same kind of dirt combination in this pot here. I'm gonna plop the water propagated spearmint in here. Definitely a resemblance. The leaves are pretty close, but not quite the same as the Mojito mint. So I'm gonna give this a little mix. So now I'm gonna take my third kind of mint that I've got here. So this is the spearmint. It's looking pretty good. The roots are forming pretty well on it, and I think it's, even though it's a little twisted, it should eventually sort of straighten out. So I'm gonna plant it a little bit at an angle to fit it in here. I think I can probably get away with this much dirt. I've got the same kind of soil combination I've got in the transplanted chocolate mint that I've got over here, and I'm going to top it off with a little bit of compost as kind of a mulch. It's got worm castings in it as well, so there we go. It looks pretty good. Tuck it in a little bit. Again, keep it like about an inch below the edge of the pot so that when you water it, it doesn't overflow. And these terracotta pots, they wick water away on the sides, like through the porousness of the terracotta, and it's got a hole in it. You definitely want to have a hole in there for drainage. Try and straighten this out a little bit. There we go. So now we've got all 3 of these sorted out. And I'm going to take these propagated Mojito mints and put them back in the pot they came from. So I've got my spearmint here that I am potting up. This was grown from a water propagated cutting. If you hear somebody say mint in general, spearmint is what they're referring to. The 2 types of mint that you'll hear about in gardening and cooking would be peppermint and spearmint. I don't have any peppermint here, although the chocolate mint is a hybrid variety of peppermint. Peppermint has a bit shinier leaves, a little bit more jagged on the edges. The spearmint looks a bit more like a tip of a spear. I get up and close here, you can kind of see the leaves are a little more ridged, a little more jagged along the edges and pointed at the tip. It has a bit of a milder flavor than peppermint. So the last thing I'm going to do here is to kind of backfill the corner of this pot, which I've now gone ahead and I've added some dirt in here to even up the soil. So where I've taken out to put into here with the chocolate mint and the root balls that were attached, I am now kind of backfilled in here so that there's room to plop in these new guys. So I've got how many here? Ooh, there's a pretty good chunk of them. They're not particularly tall. You see this one's only about 2.5, 3 inches tall. So 1, 2, 3. This one did not root at all. Interesting. It didn't root, but it did grow a whole bunch. So I'm going to keep this guy aside and I will put him back in the water, see what happens there. And then I've got this guy here who's got a pretty good root system and some growth at the bottom as well. And then this guy has got little tiny roots and he's a little tiny plant. So I'm going to see what happens with him. I'll put these 5 back in. So I'm going to make 5 equidistant holes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The holes are about an inch 1.5 inch deep. That should cover the roots. Pop these guys in and just kind of tuck in around them. Now these guys should nicely fill up this pot. And if I get a chance, I will record a video of the aftermath of this in a few weeks once everything's had a chance to settle down. I put these last two in. Voila. That doesn't look too shabby. Since these are water propagated, even though they came from the original plant, they're cuttings that I took and then water propagated, I'm gonna need to water them pretty well. So I'm gonna first put a little bit more compost on top here just to A, kind of even out the soil, and B, this was just bare soil before. And then tuck these guys in nicely and then water them in, and that's it. So now you can see my handy workmanship. These 3 finished products here, all nicely arranged. Here the Mojito mint, and it's 5 little baby mints that are all tucked in nicely to even things out. Looking nice and healthy. You can see kind of a little further down, this is where I pruned it down originally. So we're talking a good 4, 5, 6, 7 inches of growth in some spots. And that's just in the last 3 weeks. You can see here, this is the chocolate mint, been nicely tucked into its own space. Should have a chance to grow without interference. And here we go is our little spearmint. And hopefully he'll grow into a nice bushy plant like his cousins. And so the thing you'll want to keep in mind with mint in general is that mint is a pretty hardy grower, and it will take over entire flower beds. It'll jump into your yard and take over your yard. So just even having it combined with another mint, you can see that the Mojito mint was destroying the available space and growing area for that little chocolate mint that I had in there. So mistake averted, and hopefully now we can have a nice separation between all 3 of them. So with that, hopefully it's mistake averted and repaired. So here we go, everything's looking nice. And hopefully the next time around, I won't make this mistake and now you won't have to make it either. Last thing I'm gonna do here is water these guys in, get rid of any air pockets that might be still left inside the dirt, and that should be it. Just wanted to pop back with a quick check-in on the 3 different mints that I potted up and transplanted and moved from water to actual pots. So this is the smaller one. I think this is the Spearmint. Looking pretty good. I mean, it's grown a decent amount there. He's also looking like he's pretty healthy at this point. I think the transplant shock is probably over. This looks like there's a little bit of fresh growth at the tip here. Looks quite good. Moving on over here. This is the chocolate mint that I had originally planted in the larger pot. And as you can see, this guy's looking nice and healthy. I just watered him. It's been a pretty warm day. I'd say he's probably close to double in size, if not more, than when I potted him up after the transplant shock kind of wore off. It took about a week or so, a week to 10 days. And now it's just growth all over the place. Finally, the mother of all mints here. I'm not going to move this pot, but this Mojito mint is just monstrous. I think this is where I put in the new chunks that I had originally water propagated from pruned cutting. And I think they're all in here somewhere. Honestly, it's so bushy that I can barely tell where they're at. And I think there's new growth popping up left and right as well. And it's honestly almost hard to tell where they went in. It's just huge now. Plant's taking over the entire pot. It's amazing. This is probably pushing close to 18 inches, maybe more tall now. And you can see it's compared to some of my other plants. It's catching up to some of the bushes in size, which is crazy. So yeah, looking great. This whole haul of mint. There's way more mint than I can actually use, but they smell fantastic. And I'm not even a mint fan, to be honest. Like, not a big fan of eating chocolate mints or that kind of thing, but the smell is wonderful. So there you have it, recovered very nicely. One fine little update here I thought I'd throw in just for a bonus. This is the last piece of propagated Mojito mint. It's an amazing amount of growth, and that's just in the 2 weeks since I left it. This is the one that hadn't grown anything, and now all of a sudden he's got an entire root system. So I think I'll be popping him in with his brethren here. He can join the flock just for comparison's sake. There's the size of the entire plant. It's pretty amazing. Let's see if I can put a spot here to put in that last piece of mint. Yeah, there's room right there. Pop this guy in here. Small cavity right there. That's good. And now, find a little propagated chunk of Mojito mint. Let's take him and pop him into his newfound home right here. Let's make sure all of the roots are covered. Let's give it a little tuck in. And there we go. And you could barely tell it was gone. And to believe that that was actually the very tip of a pruned piece that I de-leafed and just kind of left this last 2 inches at the top. And I guess when you're pruning mint, you can always think about if you're not going to actually eat them or dry them for future use, what you can do is take them off right above a set of nodes here. See these sets of leaves here? You will get new growth right immediately above. It's kind of like basil, actually. Basil has the alternating sets of leaves. So you see one set of leaves here, another set of leaves, and they alternate down the stem. So if you find a spot right above a set of leaves here, new nodes will grow. You can actually see right here, there's a good example of two that are popping out right above that set of leaves. So if you trimmed right about there, your plant would actually fork at that point, and two new growths would come out there. Now, this is probably not the greatest spot to be doing that. I'd actually prune this lower down just to get more growth and to make the plant a little bushier. But I mean, this guy is bushy enough as it is. Yeah, just in case you are thinking about trimming back your Mojito mint or any kind of mint. Actually, this applies to basil and other kind of herbs that are in the same groupings. Give that a shot and save those little pieces. Take off the bigger leaves at the bottom because you don't need them. Pop that in water and then let it root. Within a couple of weeks, you should have a propagated piece of mint. But thank you for joining me. My name is Nick, and if you'd hit the like button if you enjoyed this content, subscribe if you loved it. What I'm doing here is just kind of cataloging and documenting my journey and trying to do this in a climate like Vancouver, which is not the most convenient climate for having a long summer. Knowing how things go here in Vancouver, it's going to be pouring rain before you know it. Happy gardening, and we'll see you next time.